I'm Dave Klenk. This is a jewelry box design we've been working on, and this video is on the Brusso HD638 hinges and how to make a template that guides the router to cut the mortises for the hinges. Real simple. I showed in an earlier video. The templates go in between the box and the lid. They get aligned so that the center of this space lines on the center of the thickness of the sides. Use a router to cut that mortise. So all we're going to do today is make up these templates. Real quickly, they are about 6 1/8 inches by 6 1/8 inches. I rip a piece of Baltic plywood, something like this, just a piece of leftover 1/2 inch Baltic, into strips. The strips are 2 7/16 inch wide for the outside strips, and then a 1/2 inch and just a few thousandths over a 1/2 inch for this strip, and 11/16 inch for this strip. That works well for the HD638. This is the router setup. I use a 1/2 inch bushing, a 5/16 inch diameter router bit, straight cutting router bit. Just a reason why I make the templates myself. This is the Brusso template I bought. The problem is it's only an 1/8 inch thick, and when you plunge the router into the wood, you get a little bit of sawdust underneath the router, and it lifted the router up out of the template. An 1/8 inch isn't enough. You can see maybe right here I had to put some JB weld in where the router bit dinged the template. So for my uses, this just isn't reliable enough. It doesn't work. I need something thicker. So a 1/2 inch thick template with a 1/4 inch beam. The beam is the piece that goes between the two. That has to be dadoed up into the template, and you have to have room for a screw to go through it. So you can go thicker. I wouldn't go any thinner. Those are the basic dimensions. Also, critical dimensions. The space from here to here is about 1 1/32. The space from here to here is 2 1/2. What I do to create that space is, after I cut the strips, I cut pieces that are a plug that fit in between the strips. I glue the plug together, and then I glue the template around the plug. And that's what we'll be doing next. I don't think I need to show every step at the table saw. If you guys know how to make boxes and you know how to install hinges, you'd probably know how to use a table saw. So I'm just going to cut the strips down and then cross cut them into the two different templates, and I'll be back when I'm ready to glue things up. I want to show one thing, if I can, about the dimensions. If you take your Brusso hinges and you measure the dimensions, the space inside the template, that's these different dimensions, are the dimensions of the hinge flaps plus 3/32 each way. So I measured from, if I measure from here to here, that's just over, I'm going to have to hold it flat, 13 sixteenths. It's about a 64th over. So that plus 3/16 in this dimension is 1 inch and 1/64. So that's how I arrive at those dimensions. Just to be clear, this is the hinge with the dimensions written out on the cardboard, and I'll follow up with some metric dimensions once I get to the computer. And what we have to do is make the calculation that I show there. What I've done is make all the pieces. You can see this piece and this piece make up the plug. They have to be centered one on the other, glued together, and then that plug has to be glued to the center line of the two larger side flaps of the template. Once they are aligned, then first I wrap them with Scotch tape so they don't all stick together. Then I align the plugs with the center lines of the larger pieces, and then I fit these to it. And that gives me, after the glue dries and I knock the plug out, that gives me the template with the negative space. But you're not done, because after that you have to ensure that the dado, the groove for the beam that goes between the box and the lid, is perfectly centered between this negative space, or in the negative space. And sometimes that takes more than one attempt, where I would cut the dado, I would measure the edge of the dado to the edge of these sides, and if it wasn't perfect, I would fill the dado in with a piece of wood, glue it in, and cut it over. And once I get this glued up, I will show how that is. So here are the templates after they've been glued up. What I did was glue the plugs together first, and you can see the scribe line I did for the center. And then I aligned the scribe line of the plug with the scribe line of the two largest pieces of the template. I wrapped it with Scotch tape because it's really thin, and so it wouldn't get stuck when I did the glue up. And then I glue it together. The most critical thing at this point is the center line, to make sure that the opening is centered on the center line, and then looking at the other template, that the dado for the beam is also centered. It's best to measure that with calipers or with like a single-use gauge block to check this dimension and this dimension with the center line. If it's off a 64th or a 32nd, you can adjust with the location of the dado. But one of the most common problems I had as I was starting out making these is that one set of hinges, like the left-hand side, is slightly off from the right-hand side. And that just causes problems with alignment. The whole point of this is to get an excellent alignment of the hinges because of the alignment of the mortises for the hinge flaps. And so to do that, we're in effect acting more like a machine shop than a wood shop, but the precision pays off. And once you have one set of these, you've got it. You only have to get it right once, so it's worth the effort. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time showing you me cutting a dado at the table saw. I'm going to trim the ends square and then cut the dados. I'll be back in a few minutes. So this is the template with the beam in it, and I'm going to try to show. This is, it's going to be hard to get in the camera. 32nd over 3/8. And then on this side, squeezing a little bit. It's a little bit under, almost a 64th under. The longer flap is about a 64th over an eighth. And this 64th over an eighth. So that I'm hoping that's going to be good enough. And that's it. I'm going to try to show. I laid out, it's hard to see, I laid out the locations with a knife, and I just made a scribe line. Hard to see, but I laid out the location of the dado with a knife instead of a pencil to get a more accurate cut. I'll do the second one and we'll check the total tolerances, the total accuracy of all of them. I'll be right back. And here's the second template, and it looks like it's pretty close. Just over an inch and an eighth, maybe a 32nd over, or a 64th over. This one a little bit more than that. This is 32nd over 3/8, so it's 13 32nds. This one pretty close enough. Okay, so this one's looking better than the other one. The last step is to cut some mortises in pieces of scrap and check them to see how the actual hinges fit, and do they result in a box lid that's aligned with the box bottom. I'm going to set up and do that right now. I've got 2 pieces of scrap poplar in the template set. I've got the 5/16 inch diameter router bit with the 1/2 inch bushing, and I'm going to give it a test run now. They fit pretty good. I don't know about the alignment. The boards are misaligned because the way I clamped it into down to the table is misaligned. But I'm going to put a couple of screws in it and see how it fits. I'll be right back. But as far as the alignment goes, the fit of the flaps into the piece of wood, that looks pretty good. I think this one, these aren't, I need to get the screws into it, but it looks fine. it's aligned except the side to side, but that looks good. See this right here, I'll have to put a little bit of a shim in. This doesn't look, yeah, it's got, I think that's just that's about it. If you have any thoughts, if you're working on a project with quadrant hinges, I'd like to get your thoughts and your comments. Thank you.